ExamPrep.School. Wisconsin Public Insurance Adjuster Exam, exam code 22-15. There are 6 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. Adjusting losses, auto insurance, business owner's policy, commercial package policy, dwelling policy, general insurance, homeowner's policy, insurance regulation, other coverages and options, property insurance basics. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. Which of the following must an applicant submit when applying for an initial Wisconsin Public Adjuster license? A. Documentation of at least 3 years' experience as an adjuster. B. Evidence of continuous errors and omissions insurance coverage. C. A $20,000 surety bond issued by a Wisconsin licensed surety company. D. Proof of a net worth of at least $50,000. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is C. Wisconsin law requires public adjuster applicants to file a $20,000 surety bond to protect clients from potential losses resulting from adjuster misconduct. Reason A is not correct. There is no minimum adjuster experience requirement for initial licensure under Wisconsin statutes. Reason B is not correct. Errors and omissions insurance is not a statutory requirement for initial licensure in Wisconsin. Reason D is not correct. A minimum net worth of $50,000 is not mandated for initial public adjuster licensing in Wisconsin. Question 2. Jane Adjuster received her Wisconsin Public Adjuster license on March 10, 2022, and must also complete the required continuing education before renewing. Based on Wisconsin's license renewal cycle requirements, by what date must she submit her renewal application to avoid a lapse in her license? A. March 10, 2024. B. March 31, 2024. C. March 31, 2023. D. April 15, 2024. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is March 31, 2024, because Wisconsin public adjuster licenses renew on a biennial cycle ending on the last day of the month in which the license was issued. Reason A is not correct. Choosing March 10, 2024 uses the issuance day rather than the end of the issuance month as the renewal deadline. Reason C is not correct. Selecting March 31, 2023 applies a 1-year cycle instead of the required 2-year renewal period. Reason D is not correct. April 15, 2024 confuses a potential CE submission deadline with the official end-of-month renewal deadline. Question 3. Under Wisconsin law, which action falls within the Office of the Commissioner of Insurance's authority when investigating licensee misconduct? A. Issue administrative subpoenas to compel witness testimony under oath. B. Impose civil forfeiture penalties without a formal hearing process. C. Initiate criminal prosecutions for fraudulent insurance practices. D. Suspend a license immediately without prior notice to the licensee. The correct answer is A. The Office of the Commissioner of Insurance is granted statutory authority to issue administrative subpoenas that require testimony under oath and document production in investigations of licensee misconduct. Civil forfeiture and suspension actions require formal hearings, and criminal prosecutions are handled by district attorneys. Reason B is not correct. Civil penalties cannot be imposed without first conducting a formal administrative hearing, so this exceeds the immediate investigatory powers. Reason C is not correct. The OCI does not have prosecutorial authority. Criminal charges are brought by law enforcement or district attorneys. Reason D is not correct. A license cannot be summarily suspended without notice and the opportunity for a hearing, So this action is beyond investigatory authority. Question 4. Under Wisconsin Statute S. 628.462, which of the following insurer actions constitutes an unfair claim settlement practice? A. Offering an advance payment subject to the policy deductible. B. Requesting an itemized repair estimate before issuing payment for a covered loss. C. Conditioning settlement on the insured assigning subrogation rights against a liable third party. D. Engaging an independent appraiser to resolve a disputed valuation. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is conditioning settlement on assignment of subrogation rights against a third party. Wisconsin Statute S. 628.46 prohibits requiring the insured to waive or transfer subrogation rights as a condition of payment. Requesting repair estimates, offering advance payments with deductibles, and using an appraiser to resolve a valuation dispute are permissible settlement practices. Reason A is not correct. Offering an advance payment subject to the policy deductible helps expedite funds to the insured and aligns with policy terms, making it permissible. Reason B is not correct. Requesting an itemized repair estimate is a standard requirement to verify the scope and cost of a covered loss, and it is not prohibited. Reason D is not correct. Engaging an independent appraiser to resolve valuation disputes is an approved method for settling coverage disagreements and is not an unfair practice. Question 5. In insurance risk classification, which of the following statements best distinguishes speculative risk from pure risk? A. Speculative risk refers exclusively to financial transactions, while pure risk pertains solely to personal property. B. Pure risk exposures cannot lead to financial gain under any circumstances, but speculative risk can result in profit. C. Speculative risk outcomes are always voluntary actions, while pure risk arises from uncontrollable events. D. Pure risk covers only natural perils, whereas speculative risk encompasses all other perils. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is based on the fundamental distinction that speculative risk includes the possibility of profit in addition to loss or no loss, whereas pure risk can only result in loss or no loss. Reason A is not correct. This choice is incorrect because speculative risk is not limited to financial transactions, and pure risk is not confined to personal property. Reason C is not correct. This choice is incorrect because voluntariness is not the defining characteristic. The key difference is the potential for gain. Reason D is not correct. This choice is incorrect because risk classification is not determined by the type of peril, but by the possibility of gain versus only loss. Question 6. A homeowner signs and submits an insurance application through a public adjuster and includes the first premium payment. The insurer subsequently issues the policy. Which action best demonstrates consideration in the formation of this contract? A. Homeowner's payment of the first premium. B. Public adjuster completing the application details. C. Homeowner signing the application form. D. Insurer issuing the policy. The correct answer is A. The homeowner's payment of the premium constitutes the exchange of value that makes consideration, satisfying the element of a contract in return for the insurer's promise to provide coverage. Reason B is not correct. The adjuster's actions are agency tasks and do not represent an exchange of value between contracting parties. Reason C is not correct. Signing the application constitutes an offer rather than the exchange of value needed for consideration. Reason D is not correct. Issuing the policy represents acceptance by the insurer, not the insured's consideration. Question 7. Which of the following best describes the primary purpose of the declarations page in a property insurance policy? A. It outlines perils that are specifically excluded from coverage. B. It provides detailed definitions of policy terms and conditions. C. It summarizes key policy information such as coverage limits, covered property, and policy period. D. It specifies the insured's duties and responsibilities following a loss. The correct answer is C. The declarations page serves as a concise summary of the insured's name, covered property, policy period, limits, deductibles, and premiums, enabling quick reference to essential contract details. Reason A is not correct. This describes the exclusions section instead of the summary of core policy elements found on the declarations page. Reason B is not correct. Definitions of terms appear in a separate definitions or conditions section, not the declarations page. Reason D is not correct. Insured duties after loss are detailed in the conditions section, not on the declarations summary page. Question 8. A homeowner's roof suffers damage in a covered loss. The roof's replacement cost is $20,000 and its actual cash value, after depreciation, is $17,000. The policy includes a $1,000 deductible. How much will the insurer pay toward the roof replacement? A. $16,000. B. $15,000. C. $17,000. D. $19,000. The correct answer is A. The insurer pays the actual cash value of $17,000 less the $1,000 deductible, yielding a payment of $16,000. Reason B is not correct. This calculation incorrectly applies the deductible before depreciation, leading to an understated payment. Reason C is not correct. This figure omits the deductible entirely, overstating the insurer's obligation. Reason D is not correct. This value subtracts the deductible from replacement cost rather than from actual cash value, resulting in an inflated payment. Question 9. Under the ISO homeowners policy, which of the following best describes the primary distinction between coverage A dwelling and coverage B other structures? A. Coverage B applies to structures separated from the dwelling by a clear space, whereas coverage A applies to the dwelling and any attached structures. B. Other structures used in business operations are insured under coverage A if located on the resident's premises. C. Coverage A covers fences and driveways as part of the dwelling, while coverage B excludes permanent outdoor fixtures. D. Other structures rented to non-residents are covered by coverage A but not by coverage B. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is that unattached structures separated by clear space are covered under coverage B, while coverage A applies to the dwelling and any attached structures. Reason B is not correct. Structures used in business are typically excluded under both sections unless specifically endorsed, so they are not automatically covered under coverage A. Reason C is not correct. Fences and driveways are classified as other structures and fall under coverage B, not coverage A. Reason D is not correct. Rental status does not determine coverage classification. Coverage B applies to unattached structures regardless of rental to non-residents, except for business uses. Question 10. Which of the following should an insured primarily use to determine the appropriate coverage limit to avoid a co-insurance penalty under an HO3 policy? A. The original purchase price, including land value. B. A current replacement cost estimate without depreciation. C. The most recent property tax assessed value. D. The fair market value based on local sales comparables. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is a replacement cost estimate because coverage A limits are based on the cost to rebuild the dwelling without depreciation. Using market or tax values can lead to underinsurance and a co-insurance penalty. Reason A is not correct. Including land value overstates rebuilding cost and does not match policy valuation requirements. Reason C is not correct. Tax-assessed values often lag current construction costs and exclude complete rebuilding expenses. Reason D is not correct. Fair market value reflects land and market conditions, not the actual cost to replace the structure. Question 11. A homeowner's policy lists the coverage. A. Dwelling limit at $372,000. The policy includes a detached she shed, classified as an other structure under coverage B. What is the maximum amount the insurer will pay for damage to the she shed without any endorsement? A. $37,200. B. $18,600. C. $3,720. D. $74,400. The correct answer is A. Other structures under coverage B are automatically covered at 10% of the coverage A limit. 10% of $372,000 equals $37,200. Reason B is not correct. This is 5% of the dwelling limit, while the policy automatically provides 10% for other structures. Reason C is not correct. This reflects only 1% of the dwelling limit, but the standard automatic limit for other structures is 10%. Reason D is not correct. This equals 20% of the dwelling limit, exceeding the policy's automatic 10% allocation for other structures. Question 12. Under a standard HO, 3 homeowners policy, which of the following losses would be covered under the water damage peril exception for sudden and accidental discharge of water from a building's plumbing system? A. Gradual seepage of water through basement foundation walls over several weeks. B. Backflow of sewage from the public sewer main into the basement. C. Overflow of water onto the kitchen floor due to a supply line that suddenly ruptured. D. Flooding of the living room from a nearby river overtopping its banks. The correct answer is C. This option is correct because the HO3 policy covers sudden and accidental discharge of water from within plumbing systems. The other scenarios are excluded. Gradual seepage is excluded as wear and tear, sewer backflow requires a separate endorsement, and external flooding is excluded under the flood exclusion. Reason A is not correct. Gradual seepage is excluded under the water damage exclusion, which applies only to sudden and accidental events. Reason B is not correct. Backflow of sewage is excluded by the sewer backup exclusion and would require a separate endorsement for coverage. Reason D is not correct. Flooding from external surface water is excluded by the flood exclusion in the HO3 form. Question 13. After minor tremors in a seismically active region, a homeowner discovers foundation cracks. The homeowner's standard policy specifically excludes earth movement losses unless added by endorsement. Which endorsement should the public adjuster recommend to ensure coverage for this type of damage? A. Volcanic eruption endorsement. B. Earthquake endorsement. C. Sinkhole collapse endorsement. D. Subsidence endorsement. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is the earthquake endorsement, because it specifically adds coverage for losses caused by earth movement, which are otherwise excluded under the standard policy. Reason A is not correct. Coverage for volcanic eruptions does not extend to general earth movement or tremor-related foundation damage. Reason C is not correct. Sinkhole collapse coverage is limited to ground voids and does not cover tremor-induced cracking. Reason D is not correct. Subsidence endorsements address soil settlement issues but do not cover seismic earth movement events. Question 14. Which of the following best describes the primary purpose of a scheduled personal property endorsement on a homeowner's policy? A. To increase the blanket personal property limit for all categories of items on a worldwide basis. B. To extend personal liability protection to cover losses arising from the use of scheduled personal property. C. To designate specific high-value items with an agreed value, thus eliminating the standard policy sublimits and providing open perils coverage. D. To cover repair or replacement costs of scheduled items solely against theft on an actual cash value basis. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that a scheduled personal property endorsement allows the insured to list individual high-value items at an agreed value, which removes the usual policy sublimits and provides open perils coverage for those scheduled items. Reason A is not correct. Blanket limits cover broad categories worldwide but do not schedule specific items with individual agreed values. Reason B is not correct. This endorsement does not modify liability protections. It enhances property coverage for listed items only. Reason D is not correct. Scheduled endorsements cover against all named peril losses on an agreed value basis, not only theft on actual cash value. Question 15. A retailer carrying a business personal property coverage form under a commercial package policy has 4 property situations. 1 seasonal display racks stored at a second storefront 120 feet from the described premises. 2 shelving and inventory at a newly acquired warehouse, occupied 45 days ago but not added to the policy schedule. 3 equipment stored in a detached storage shed 80 feet from the described premises on adjacent property. And 4 business personal property in transit to a customer site. Which of these is covered under the form's business personal property coverage? A. Equipment stored in the detached shed 80 feet from the described premises. B. Shelving and inventory at the newly acquired warehouse occupied 40 days ago. C. Seasonal display racks at the second storefront 120 feet away. D. Business personal property in transit to a customer site. The correct answer is A. Business personal property coverage extends to property on premises and within 100 feet of the premises, so equipment in the shed 80 feet away is covered. The other locations exceed time or distance limitations or are in transit, which require separate coverage. Reason B is not correct. Newly acquired locations are covered only for 30 days after occupancy unless scheduled by endorsement. Reason C is not correct. Property beyond 100 feet from the described premises is excluded under the distance limitation. Reason D is not correct. Property in transit is not covered under the form unless specifically scheduled or endorsed. Question 16. Which of the following best describes the primary purpose of contractors' equipment? Inland marine coverage. A. Provide named peril coverage for contractors' equipment permanently installed at a building under construction. B. Provide open peril protection for scheduled mobile construction equipment while in transit and at temporary job sites. C. Provide coverage only for contractors' non-motorized tools and equipment kept on the insured's premises. D. Provide liability coverage for damage to third-party property caused by contractors' equipment. The correct answer is B. This option is correct because contractors' equipment inland marine coverage provides open peril property protection for scheduled mobile construction equipment, both in transit and at temporary job sites. Reason A is not correct. It describes named peril coverage limited to installed equipment, but the intended coverage is open peril and for mobile assets. Reason C is not correct. It restricts to non-motorized tools on premises, whereas the coverage applies to both motorized and non-motorized equipment on and off premises. Reason D is not correct. It refers to liability for third-party damage, but this coverage addresses property damage to the contractor's own equipment. Question 17. A boutique clothing store applies for a business owner's policy. The store's annual gross sales total $1.8 million, of which $600,000 comes from an in-store coffee bar serving espresso beverages. The operation employs 30 retail clerks and 10 baristas. Under ISO/BOP eligibility guidelines, is this business eligible for a standard BOP? A. Yes, because total employee count is below the maximum for a BOP. B. Yes, because retail operations with incidental food service are generally eligible. C. No, because annual gross sales exceed typical revenue limits for a BOP. D. No, because the coffee bar receipts exceed the BOP's incidental food service percentage limit. The correct answer is D. The incidental restaurant operations generate 600,000 inches receipts, which is one-third of total sales, exceeding the 25% gross receipts threshold for food service under ISOBOP eligibility, making the business ineligible. Reason A is not correct. Employee count limits do not override the specific incidental food service gross receipts restriction for a BOP. Reason B is not correct. Eligibility for incidental food service depends on a percentage of gross receipts, not solely on operation type. Reason C is not correct. While gross sales thresholds vary by insurer, the primary disqualifier here is the incidental food service receipts percentage. Question 18. Which of the following perils is covered by the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP standard flood policy, but typically excluded under a standard homeowner's insurance policy? A. Loss due to backup of a household sump pump system. B. Wind-driven rain entering through a compromised roof structure. C. Damage from sudden overflow of an internal domestic water system. D. Direct physical loss to a dwelling caused by the unusual and rapid accumulation of surface water. The correct answer is D. This option is correct because the NFIP standard flood policy explicitly covers direct physical loss caused by floodwaters, defined as the unusual and rapid accumulation or runoff of surface water, which is an exclusion under standard homeowners policies. Reason A is not correct. Non-flood-related water backup from sump pumps is excluded under flood policies and is a plumbing system peril, not a flood peril. Reason B is not correct. Wind-driven rain is classified as a windstorm peril and is covered by homeowners policies, not defined as flood by the NFIP. Reason C is not correct. Overflow from internal domestic water systems is considered a plumbing loss, not a flood loss under NFIP definitions. Question 19. A neighbor borrows a vehicle from the named insured with express permission and, while driving, causes a collision that injures another motorist. The named insured's personal auto policy lists only the insured and the insured's spouse as covered drivers. Under the policy's liability section, does the policy provide coverage for the permissive driver's liability? A. No, permissive use is excluded for drivers who are not household members. B. No, liability coverage is limited to the named insured and resident relatives only. C. Yes, because liability coverage automatically extends to any permissive user under the policy. D. Yes, but only if the permissive user had been added by endorsement before the loss. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that liability coverage under a personal auto policy extends to permissive users, meaning anyone operating the vehicle with the insured's permission is insured under the liability section unless an exclusion applies. Reason A is not correct. This is wrong because the policy does not require permissive drivers to be household members in order to receive liability coverage. Reason B is not correct. This is wrong because liability coverage is not limited to named insureds and resident relatives. It also extends to permissive users. Reason D is not correct. This is wrong because no additional endorsement is needed for permissive users to be covered under the liability section. Question 20. Which autos are covered under symbol 7 inches, the business auto coverage form? A. All owned, hired, and non-owned autos. B. Autos specifically described in the policy declarations. C. Autos the insured leases, hires, rents, or borrows from others. D. Autos not owned by the insured but used in the business. The correct answer is B. Symbol 7 provides coverage only for the vehicles expressly listed in the declarations by identification number, reflecting the specifically described autos limitation. Reason A is not correct. This symbol describes coverage for all autos rather than only those listed in the declarations. Reason C is not correct. This symbol applies to autos the insured hires or borrows, not those specifically described in the policy. Reason D is not correct. This symbol refers to non-owned autos only, not the autos explicitly identified in the declarations. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below, we read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.